decentralized, and on top this of a blockchain, you can create also organizations, and you can create in this organization value based on the maybe on the money on the blockchain. It can be as a view or anything else, and you can also on top on example on the Ethereum blockchain, you can create different assets with value called token. And if you create on top assets and shares, on example, you can create shares on companies. You can trade these shares called tokens, and it is what we have implemented or what we have started to implementing based on a blockchain technology is a complete new economy. We call it tokenizing economy. All crypto assets and all financial assets, what you can imagine, what existing today in the existing fiat, I call it fiat money, will be step by step also available and translated into the blockchain technology called on example decentralized finance. Today, I have announced, or my colleagues have announced, the first decentralized bank in Switzerland called Celsius-finance.com, and it's based on blockchain technology, complete decentralized finance. On the Ethereum blockchain, and banking assets, all crypto assets will be installed and can be traded.
Posso ser comercializado.
In my opinion, from the traditional finance industry, we call it, or I call it, TRAT. To get the translation, the bridge from the traditional finance industry to the new crypto-based or crypto asset-based, blockchain-based industry, and so will be built up. On example, the newest one, what I can have seen is the decentralized payment network. It's created by a combination of German and Chinese companies, and this will also be a central or a decentralized point for the normal fiat money, for central bank digital currencies, for new ones which are be created, and also for the crypto industry. And in my opinion, I can also recommend for Angola, you should, if you start digitalization and payment and money and with blockchain technology, start with a complete bridged approach. This is my recommendation. What you need to start this in the finance and crypto, you need regulation. In the European Union, we have since 1 year the MiCA regulation. MiCA stands for markets and crypto assets, and everything what you can imagine, what existing in the traditional finance industry, will also create it step by step on a regulated base on this market in crypto assets regulation in the European Union. And this is what I also can recommend to the Angolan government to get regulation for blockchain technology, especially in the crypto and finance industry sector.
Obrigado. Eu como entusiasta.
As an enthusiast of emerging technologies, I usually say, in order to follow this process, the inception should be differentiated. The equation should be different. People should go hand in hand for the creation of new ecosystems. And currently we're experiencing a bunch of new technologies that are coming up. and plus the human capital. So we would like to hand the floor to Engineer Binda. How do you see human capital and national human capital for the implementation of strategies that allows us to put together policies not only at a financial level but also cultural level, and what the products it developed in the ecosystem from the regulators, developers? How do you see the Angolan government? What is your impressions or what is your take on what we are currently creating? Good afternoon, colleagues, and to all participants. This is a very challenging question because I'm Angolan. It's difficult despite the pressure, but it's difficult to say a few things as an Angolan. But anyway, I would answer as a Cape Verdean, and my experience of convergence that needs to be done considering the emerging technologies and people, because emerging technologies in the concrete case of blockchain will only be useful if it has an impact on the lives of people and business. And the specific case of blockchain, we in Cape Verde, the government or the company that I represent, which is a state-owned company, and the state is a shareholder, our activities to ensure the digital governance. And we have a project, ongoing project, with the endorsement from the government, which is to create the government blockchain-based blockchain governance based cloud. And whatever was explained here, and I'm not going to repeat it, I will just simply complement two characteristics that differentiate blockchain from other technologies. Firstly, this distributing nature, which is basically a database, a distributing database, and that it's updated 100% online and by all participants in the all stakeholders in the network, which also generates transparency, and it doesn't change, and it brings about a value with respect to other technologies compared to other technology, because I'll be able to secure or ensure that all data do not change, and this brings about huge advantages for people, because if I have to look at the cryptocurrency or the financial sector, and if we are to use blockchain for areas or important sectors, we in Cape Verde, we have a huge focus on the registration, notaries and identification registration, and whereby technologies or digital transformation will never positively impact the lives of people if we don't have a strong digital identification. So blockchain helps a lot. Before we started talking to my colleague Yuri, who had brought something really relevant because it affects most African countries, and that is something most citizens in Africa do not have a registration, and this raises an issue. Are these citizens to take advantage of this technology? The digital in blockchain can help resolve this issue of registration, but there are many countries, especially in Latin American countries, that are using blockchain in a very effective way, and that is a technology to take people out of poverty, and by looking, for instance, at real estate speculations. For instance, we know that some areas which does not have an added value in terms of real estate, realty they can have speculative prices, and many things can happen in registration. So if all registrations, let's say property registration, will be based on blockchain technology, then there won't be any chances for any people to change or temper without João's and Maria's registration. And this makes a lot of difference, because if in a given tourist zone is worth 10, and then with the speculation it starts having 100 as a price, people will be out of poverty. So this is just to do with the need to integrate people, bring people in. The digital will be useful. If we are not investing money, then if we have to invest money and people are not impacted by it, then it doesn't make any sense. So we need to raise awareness in terms of the technology, and we need to get rid of the shade of have telecommunication. Qualified people, they can use the social network, but when they have to benefit from services, they have challenges. Whenever we design solutions themselves to the technology, so responsiveness is required at all levels, and blockchain can actually help with this. Firstly, telecommunications. Then we should be focusing on digital literacy and responsiveness in terms of our technological solutions, so that people can actually take dividend or take advantage of all these available technologies. I fully understand, and you have mentioned about the digital market. Over the past 5 years, I've started with some research and studies, not only in Angola, technologies. Not only in Africa, we have challenges in terms of habits and customs, which hampers the standards and science. So we should be able to apply all these in our society. Certainly, the Angolan government should be put together some criminalization policies, and that is something that opposes to innovation and also an identity. And whenever we talk about digital identity, we're not just talking about our name, place of birth, or where we study, where we train. All this is part of the digital identity, and blockchain brings about a brokerage of processes. So if we do want to buy or sell a house, we'll need a card in order to validate that we have this house, and that the other person will receive. And all this process creates a number of barriers. For instance, we cannot have a validations of the benefits or what the doctors are doing due to the lack of trust. And today we have lack of trust in everything, in bureaucracy, in services, in almost everywhere. So I'd like to ask Dr. Elena Pereira whether blockchain wouldn't be an adequate to bring a centralized database for more than 10 million people who have bank accounts. And since we have more than 23 commercial banks, how are we supposed to put into play policies that enable citizens to use this, and also be able to drive people to improve the quality of human life? Thank you for the question. Yes, recently we looked at the criminalizations of the cryptocurrency mining, and this was not up to BNA to decide. This was the parliament that decided. The parliamentarians have voted, but we need to understand that the blockchain does not only restrict itself to mining, cryptocurrency mining. Blockchain is there. It's not forbidden. It's not prohibited to get into an internet. It's not just about mining. Mining, if we are to look at, we had access to the existence of mining. There were companies that supposedly were doing this activity, who had cement or bricks production, and then at the back of these factories they were doing some other things. And we should look at this, that whenever we talk about regulation, we usually think of regulation as something prohibitive. No, some emerge in order to protect the final user. Let's say someone becomes a victim of the use of crypto assets. Whose entity are they supposed to complain to? So we need for these issues to be regulated, but there are some aspects that do not get into the umbrella of the central bank. In terms of usage of cryptocurrency or blockchain technology, so as to leverage some of these aspects, I would say this: in the financial aspect, in the financial sector or world, let us start with the internet access. We are here and we are part of an evolution, an extremely dynamic evolution, to say, which was Web 1, which is basically internet. Web 2 creates content for the internet, social media, and then Web 3, which creates added value for internet. And I personally believe that blockchain will play a fundamental role. Why is this? Because blockchain provides an infrastructure. We are looking at on the financial aspects of it, but blockchain today has evolved in such a way that they are in smart contracts that self-execute themselves. So we look blockchain as an infrastructure whereby we can develop many other activities. Now, in the financial field, we have digital identity, but this will lead to another process. BNA has been serious, which has to do with financial inclusions. We are no longer talking about banks, because instead of people getting a bank account, we should include them financially, providing them access to financial services. And disruptive and decentralized technologies, blockchain will enable these aspects. So that is the scope of the regulator's vision. And then we have the issue of the access to information in a democratic manner, a decentralized network that would have a more democratic access. What does it mean? Web basic that allow people to have safety. Let me just give you a very practical example. Let me also get some of the examples mentioned by my colleagues. An investor would come and invest in a land that within the next 5 or 6 years could have a different owner without him or her knowing. With a blockchain, we'll be able to resolve this. Why is that? Since he has a notary registration, and since we have parties that would have the chip whereby the digital, whereby he himself would have a biometric access, they would this wouldn't allow to change. And in 20, another owner emerges, and documents are even issued by the same institution. These are things. In terms of financial sector, we BNA we look at the financial inclusion and probably allowing for different players, not only banks, also enter the market. We've been we experiencing the entry of many fintechs, and then we have situations that we're experiencing what we have in Europe, CDCs, central CDCs, currencies, and many of these currencies are blockchain based. I don't know whether I was able to answer your question. Yes, blockchain is an emerging technology. It has the robotic, it has artificial intelligence, and very recently, about 4 years ago, in these studies, I was able to realize what you just said. I mean, we have very reduced knowledge on finances, and these may restrict. We have people who have bank accounts who have difficulties in using a simple credit card, so they can't even use a mobile application. It's not just in Angola; it's all over Africa, and I believe countries formed by 5 processes: people from family from societies, society from nations in a country. So human capital will be the key, the pivotal sector, and this will enable us to have adequate policies regardless of the technologies we will be providing. And I'd just like to hear from Brazil that experience through that, where society was able to adapt to this process, and with the commitment towards education and knowledge was pivotal. So I would like Leonardo to share the experience of this process, and also the relevance in capacitating people who are capable of providing smart solutions and adequate policies, because if there's no improvement in human capital, then we would replace them by robots, because everything has evolved, the technology has evolved, processes have evolved, but human capital, so artificial intelligence, and blockchain will take more professions. No doubt there will be a huge transformation. I come from the National Telecommunications Institute, where I found it to be very interesting.
Tecnologia é aquela que é a única que você tem certeza que você vai ter emprego para os próximos.
Yeah, this is a fact. And there are many professors, talking about IT, in which the blockchain is going to impact in a different ways, providing the jobs another way, and another also taking out the jobs. The fact is that it's always increasingly. Yeah, but it is important that when we are talking about blockchain, the first way is to train people can be able in the technology so that they can be able to develop the blockchains, they can be able to help.
Ela vai chegar até o usuário de uma forma cada vez mais rápida e transparente, né? Então, hoje já tem algumas aplicações que, usando a tokenização através de uma rede blockchain, você pode fazer uma determinada transferência de propriedade.
Blockchain, you can transfer the documents, contracts, this crypto narrative. You can receive the code that we present in the blockchain net. As a result, as my classmate they said very well. Well, in Brazil, is also one of the challenges is a training because we have faced the phenomenon, and it looks that it is something that is emerging characteristic of a country, and it is something that doesn't look to be well. Young people do not want the technology that involves math, and then this is a very big problem that we have been facing during like day in Brazil, because majority of the young people they don't want to attend technology engineering. So we should think, yes, right, yes, we have to think in training the professional in the blockchain. But if we do not do it well, example, maybe I talk about German, Europe, China, the little boy example there in China, Japan, they have this knowledge of blockchain. So right now we can see that those countries that works with robots, when they go to the university life, majority of them in the usual proportion than what happened in Brazil and in Angola, the majority of them they do like to go to the exact sciences. It's one of the challenges in Brazil. Well, we see that we face few policies, few public policies, applied for the blockchain. So, but it's very important that we have to believe this is a process. It's gonna be one of the day of training. It's a long time, but we know that is also the way of Angola thinking in the basic education, because with the training we are going to have the young people well trained for the better service. Well, example. 2 years ago, I have seen a system based in a robotic, sustained by blockchain, that was to eliminating the process. And 15 days, I could bring 15 people in my databases using the blockchain. Clearly, I didn't activate the validation. For the lack of policies. It's really important that the emerging countries, they are also in this process, and we need to see the benefit of the technological blockchain that brings in us. Oh my God. So I would like to ask Dr. Pereira, how do you classify Unitel money, free money, because they are digital issue? How can we not use this digital? So how can we classify? how can you provide this definition? Well, I would like just to give a tool and how does these things happen. We have company. They are the company that are here in the country, right? And we can use in their base any kind of technology, but what's going to operate from the cities into another is the Kwanza, our coin. Everything is evolved. Everything is evolved. So Kwanza must be regulated. Are we together? So what happens? These companies, they are the agent of the regulation. Example, Unity Money is one of the operator of the payment service. Example, regulation, they ask for the license and those allowed to operate. So this process today the digital assets. We are talking about tokenization of proprietary titles.
Regulate. If we are to look at this, if we are to get these things at once, we need each regulator to look at the parties, the stakeholders who are working, and then create regulations so that there will be basis. Because the question I ask myself is this: if I'm to go to an unregulated entity or who's not even licensed, BNA does not even know it, and let's say I fall victim of a fraud, to whom am I going to complain if I don't have any regulator to say, well, the regulation that not just to come to prevent or to hamper, but sometimes it also comes to safeguard the interests of the consumer. But obviously, we have those cases where they might be certain rules that do not go against with what the consumer or the innovator wants. But these are the existing regulations, and we are supposed to comply with those. When you say that we have companies that would like to be part of the financial system by using transactions not in Kwanzas, it's not regulated, but tomorrow they might be. I mean, I cannot say that it's possible because there's no regulations. Let me issue a license. I will issue a license. Then you go to Kwanza. Protecting the consumer. It's not just about preventing innovations to take place. We are looking at the consumer, and I'll always be focusing on this. At the end of it, each company is free to use the technology they want. It could even be blockchain. There's no impediment, there's no prohibition in saying, well, your system cannot be in blockchain, because BNA is actually studying blockchain. There's no such thing. But what exists, as far as I could see, companies and people were harmed. So there's a need to have some kind of balance. There's a need to have some kind of balance, and the regulators should also look at what needs to be done and monitored. But blockchain technology as such is allowed. It can be used, and many other things can also be used. If I'm to complement it, a cryptocurrency or digital currency is a digital asset. If you had to look at the evolution process, our exchange rate we're down by changes, paper, stone, so digital card. We are now making digital payments. Regardless of all of the digital assets, it's a triple. So the question is, what is the understanding of the regulatory institution with respect to each of these type of assets? Let us just look at the Multi-Cash Express, which is under the umbrella of EMIS. It provides 4 or 5 similar modalities, and these modalities are digital. So we need to look at the technology as a democratic aspect, because it has the possibility of bringing or generating access to a number of structures. And if we are to look at the European Union, they're on the bridge of launching the Euro digital, just like the United States is about to launch the digital dollar. South Africa is working on it, Nigeria. South Africa is working on launching cryptocurrency, and not just so. That's why I'm saying that by improving human capital is fundamental, because this could be part of any of our sphere. And German recently created a suggestion regulation. Angola would want to massify this, and we have national programs such as Protesi, Quenda, whereby blockchain would play to talk about PIX. And how does this PIX work in? You read my thinking, and as you were asking the question, I was thinking of PIX. This was a revolution, actually. Brazil had very random regulations in the banking sector. There are very few financial institutions and banks in Brazil. It's almost impossible to record deficits, or let's say, because everything was in their hands. There was a monopoly of 5 or 6 banks in a country of more than 200 million inhabitants, with the eighth biggest economy in the world. So if you are to transfer from one account to another within a bank, that would no longer be charged. So within the same bank, it's okay. But if you were to do a transfer from one bank to another, this would be called electronic transfer, and bank would charge a fee. And banks, obviously, they thought of this niche. During your commercial relations, you could transfer from one bank to another, and there was mining of money, and that tapped a lot. Since there was a technology to eliminate this, what did the central bank do? PIX is a spontaneous tool. So you register a PIX key, and this PIX key within your bank, they can use your email. You can use your email, or even your mobile, or even your CPF, which is an identity in Brazil. And there's a quite interesting thing, because if I'm going to ask Pedro Mendes to send me a PIX, I can simply send my email or my cell phone number. But before that, in order to do a transaction, I'll go to the bank, give a bank account, the bank code. That was really boring. So they had a number control. Now I can simply send my cell phone number, and I ask Pedro, please send me a pic. So they get the bank website, they insert his cell phone number, and they'll provide automatically all of his banking information, and the transfer goes directly, immediately. This is a very good example on the use of the blockchain, and with no costs whatsoever. So we can now wire money from one bank to any other bank is spontaneous, immediately, with just simply using by the cell phone number of the person without any cost. And that has revolutionized the technological part of the banking networks in Brazil. So they undergo a very strong regulation, and it's worth noting that it's not just about the regulation, but regulation, it's nothing when it has no regulatory aspects. Regulation has to do with the rules, and we must make sure that those rules will be applied so that there will be oversight, punishment if necessary. So I fully agree with Dr. Yuri was saying that regulation is not there to prevent people from using, but it needs to make sure that this is applied, and you do it through supervision, through penalties for those who do not stick to the rules, and this is really great. Now we're going towards another direction in Brazil, which has to do with open banking, which is a new use of a democratic use of the blockchain network. And let me just give you an example. I had a bank account in Bank A, and I wanted to get a loan from Bank B. There was a Brazilian fraud that instead of getting this loan at Bank A, then you get it from Bank B. So this is what we would call risk analysis. So banks were integrated themselves to conduct this risk analysis. Nowadays, each Brazilian has a score which is similar to the United States score, which has to do with a credit score. And whenever you opt to go for open banking, you leave a bank where you're looking for credit, and then you have visibility of all other debts you have in an automatic manner. So today I can get into Itaú Bank. Bank Itaú knows what I have in current account, and it comes out, it shows in the application, and this has brought more transparency in the process, and that has reduced the banking risk, and consequently the credit risk has reduced substantially. So this is the democratization process that we were referring to, that the blockchain network brings about. It becomes more transparent so as to improve our life, our day-to-day. So it's actually an interoperability of different models that allows us to, regardless of using a cell phone number or email, once you are being registered and that cell phone number is associated to a bank account, any bank will have this information in order to do this interoperability. Now I'd like to give the floor to Engineer Carlos Pina, and to find out from how is the Cape Verde technological level. It's good, but it could have been better. Digital transformation, it's more than technological. We need to rethink how we design, develop, and deliver services to people, and that would forces us to rethink the whole public administration. Even though we are technologically prepared, but in the case of public administrations, the private sector faces the same problem. If we are to continue working in the previous model, it's not going to be possible to have an effective digital transformation that would have an impact on the lives of people. In Cape Verde, we are good, we are working, and the government has a very strong objective, is that by 2026 we would have at least 60% of services 60% of services will be online, meaning that any company or any citizen may perform its services or even acquire its services and products online, regardless of being in Cape Verde, regardless of his physical presence, being in Angola, Cape Verde, Europe, in any other part of the world. And that will be a huge ambition, because this will force the whole state structure and all social and economic model to be adapted. And allow me to go back to our topic that is to do with the blockchain. Out of all characteristics, advantages, and disruptions that blockchain brings about, there is one that I'm going to reinforce, and this was already talked about, as to do with consolidation and democratization, but it also brings about a quite interesting feature, which has to do with the empowerment of citizens or of companies. Why is that? Because we spoke a lot about regulation, and I believe I'm not from the financial sector. I believe that the regulation must be done in all sectors, but I believe that all blockchain or any other technology will not put an end to regulation. Without any regulation, there won't be any economic model. And even centralized economic models needs regulations, but we cannot live without a regulation. Blockchain, and we need to separate all these concepts. Regulation will reduce intermediation or brokerage, and that is something we all need in order to transfer my money to Yuri. Theoretically, I wouldn't need any brokerage as long as I'm in compliance. So blockchain will do smart contracts. They will eliminate or significantly reduce brokerage, especially for commercial banks. But it must have rules, very strong rules. But what I was referring to in this characteristic has to do with empowerment. And let me just give you an example. And we are already using and implementing blockchain technology. All citizens have their data in registration, well registered. They have health registration, whatever registration it is. What happens is that our data, the information that belong to me, and we have the state as the guardian. The state is the guardian of my data. But what happens is that the state can use my information without me knowing, and the blockchain technology we allow citizens to have power, and this will be a radical change with what we know today. Medical treatment, my registration can be changed to increase more information. But with the blockchain, this will enable citizen to allow his or her registration to be changed, and that will generate a lot of advantages. This will increase the quality of health, because doctors will have more updated information. On the other, this will enable the private sector from the health sector. They'll be able to communicate, because this data belong to me, meaning that if I'm to go to a hospital, public hospital, I'm assisted, I'm consulted, so my data are updated, and tomorrow, if by any chance I go to a private clinic, the doctor from the private clinic does not need to form a new file, because they can simply get this information. I can give access to my medical file to another doctor from the private sector. That is the advantages. We don't really talk that much about the blockchain because we are very much, and for many reasons, the blockchain has grown a lot in the financial sector, especially with the cryptocurrency. So it is used in different sectors, and countries like Angola, and I believe that you can take advantage of it. I usually say that Angola, Cape Verde, or any other country do not need to go through the 20-year learning curve, especially just like those digitally more advanced countries. We don't have to go for 20 years. What we need is disruption from the organizational thinking perspective, a clear political guidance in order to accelerate this process so that everyone can take advantage of this process. Anyone getting the English? Anyone getting English? Anyone getting English? So it eliminates a brokerage of the process. We're coming to the end of our panel. I'd like to move on to some questions. I don't know whether the invited guests have questions for some of our speakers. Anyone getting English? Anyone getting English? Thank you. Thank you. Vicente Lopes is my name. I'm the Information and Communication Technology Director for Agustin Neto University. I enjoyed the presentations, but my question goes to Dr. Agustin for Cape Verde. Our relations without prejudice with what we have with Brazil, Germany. Sometimes we have good relations with the Cape Verde University, where we had good technological contacts. My question to you is that, with respect to blockchain, and you spoke on behalf of the government, what are the key challenges? What key challenges is the government of Cape Verde facing or experiencing in implementation of blockchain? And this has to do with that data security. You've also mentioned about regulation, and that's a question I could ask, but I just want to have an idea on the use of data, especially when it comes to notary services and civil registration data. Thank you. Thank you.
So to be transparent, because any transaction or operation register, every participant of the net, they know, and so that it can happen, so that we can create the block. And Bo spoke about my classmate. It's necessary the concepts. There are ways that need to be used in the blockchain net, and there are many kinds of processes, mainly in the mining, and it's also demanding, and it is expensive, and in 2022 we could have this process of mining, but the blockchain, we can say that reinforce the security. We example in Cape Verde, we have this experience in 2020. We have technological net, like private technological state that use work as a diaspora of Cape Verdean, the diplomatic people, they are part of this net. So we're suffering in Africa in 2022. So Cape Verde suffered some we have learned a lot from this issue. So, but we are overcoming this according to the cyber security. And then we know that actually we learn every day. So let me explain a little bit about blockchain. As a blockchain net, I don't want to say that it is impossible, but there is a probability that we are going to receive the attack that comes from the government. Why? Because the blockchain is shared. It is impossible another attack every participant. So it makes that blockchain improve the cyber security level. So imagine we have the service based on the blockchain. We are creating two services. First, the register, the notary register verification that is going to enforce what is confidence, but it's going to oblige you to recover updating what we have got. So we have a solution that can help in the answer, but it's really important to reconvert the information to the technology that adapt to the net. And after we have the bankarization of the state, which works as a bank, which means that every public institution, they have the payment system. Example, me, when I realized I'm going to take out my certification, I paid to the test, to the state. So when I see that this bankarization helps, I'm going to work as a bank, as a normal bank. And what we are doing here, we have to reconvert. There are very two big challenges. But with this, we are going to change the paradigm, which is to provide the service, to make that people and a company, they can interact, they can create value, and to make work creating conditions so that people from some company they can work without use of intermediation. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. So we have more one question. I don't know if we have someone who can ask you a question. Well, I think there isn't. So clear. It's clear. It's clear. Yes, I think there is someone who wants to ask a question. I think you don't need it, right? Do we need? There are people. Okay. Thank you. So, good afternoon, the speakers. So, my question is regarding to the crypto coins, example Bitcoin. So, this is answer from Dr. Ver. BNA being as a regulator of coin in our country, and talking about the digital crypto coins, why don't allow the mining here in Angola so that so that we can adapt it to this reality that is exposed in terms of active payment. Why our government doesn't allow this? Because here in Africa we're so far away from this reality. So I want to thank you once again for the question. Yeah, I'm going to go back to focus on the same point. So truly, what makes when we are before a new technology, there are some challenges. The first thing is that you take it and follow all the things, and then use all the strategies that can control. Yeah, I think in here I explain it. And then we have that kind of aspect in which has to do only by only one regulator. Okay, if I consider Bitcoin as a coin, in Angola, the coin is Kwanza. But if I consider this as an asset, that's why there are people who used to invest in this, but they should understand that before they buy these assets, first they have to go to the BNA to buy this. After BNA, nowadays not like this. The broker, those who sells titles. So this is also what we are doing. We are doing the same segmentation, but this segmentation is something a little bit controversial because it doesn't only one regulator it approaches many regulators. When there is a conflict, example, who is going to regulate? Example, we have got in Ilacon. You have main kind of ministry that they are going to control this. It's not only BNA. So it's really, when we are talking about regulation, we are talking about law. How are we going to operate? Who is going to operate? How are we going to classify? So in the meeting of these operators, it was that the law is to cast out this. It was not the BNA purpose, but it was the regulator proposal, and it was for the parliament. So the parliament, we have the deputies, they look at the things, so they say, no, we are going to deny this, so they can, it's a little bit this kind of mining as it was addressed. So we not even like have the contradictory opinion, but this is this is a view of Angola. I don't want to talk about a negative aspect to defense, because we have the example, we talk about the developing countries in mining. So it's part of the regulator. How do they apply it, and what is their vision for it? So let me just try to clarify. Our focus in the technology of blockchain, and the technology that is going to allow us mainly the financial the financial inclusion. The contradictory of my classmate spoke, Leonard Dev. We in Angola started well. So, example, I have been to Brazil. I can go to the ATM of BFA, in which I can have, in which I'm going to pay a rate with a different card. So in Brazil it is happening, but in Angola we have never faced this. Well, because in the time we created so after this we have created this new way of working. So after the evolution One of them is that there is a need to bankerize, but only with the bank we cannot solve the financial problem, because as a company, its objective to generate budgets like profit. Example, nobody wants to invest where there's only 100 people, in which the tax only like 30,000. Even in bank example, we have got the banker agent. Imagine you are being contracted to be the agent banker to facilitate this transaction. BNER created, I think, in 2016, created the financial system. So we took all these equipment and we were working with this. There are some of them that nowadays, example, they are paying. Example, we have one of them pays. It doesn't mean that the BNER is not doing nothing. Man, this like expecting for the innovator doing. But it's really important to know that we have the specific people who can do this. And one of the things that happens to us to do by one of the things has to do by the transition, in which example nowadays you can see a lot of kind of publicity of quick is going to work with the African, so I'm going to take this mine as vice versa. As a member of the Quick, I'm going to make instantaneous translation. Example, those who works in the bank, I think he uses Quicks. So this is the issues that they are being implemented, step by step. But it's really important to know what are the regulation that have and which regulator is using this activity. Mention example, if I'm working with two, I have to assign it to these two like regulator. Example, I can see young people here just to encourage. The laws are here, and then so, but the law are not to forbid only, but they are for us to follow. Imagine someone who has got 10,000 or 7,000. Someone who is unexperienced who have this and doing. If he was a victim of cyber attack, we are going to say to him that for you to protect yourself from these, you should use this. In the company, in the family. So because when I go there tomorrow and saying I need my money to pay my child fee, they say that here there isn't money. So we have to create these rules for this. Well, now clearly the innovation comes before the regulation. It's really important. We as a regulator, I'm talking about all of those who are working for the public service. But we know that we can apply this, although not as the people want, but we can apply this. So there are questions, so we have got the speaker so they can respond. So I want to thank for the speakers for the explanation given. So thank you very much. Se tiver a trazer alguma coisa